fucked up.
Yeah, just fucked up.
Hi guys, welcome to Your Thoughts podcast with Jesse Martinez.
This is Tyler Beck.
We have an anonymous guest today who wishes to remain anonymous because of the conversational topic. She can get a lot of trouble for talking about what she's talking about, I guess, technically. So she wants to talk about some educational things because she is a teacher of the 4th grade, which I just found out. We thought it was special ed, but she just has a degree in that. Here she is. Say
Hi,
hello.
everyone.
Hi, this is our second take.
Thanks for
'cause
having
we're
me.
Stupid.
No worries.
So please, again, in so many words.
So many words.
Summarize the Red for Ed movement.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself first.
Please, yes.
So I graduated from NAU and I worked teaching preschool for 3
That's
years.
the first time I've heard that.
NAU?
Crazy. No, that you
Oh.
studied
Yeah.
went to college as well.
Probably
It's
never
fine.
heard of any.
Probably, you know.
Chance goes to
Open
NAU.
flag stuff.
Went to- Shut up.
So I graduated in 4 years with a degree in elementary and special education. And I just fell in love with kids and teaching. And this is my first year teaching in the big leagues, teaching 4th graders.
Congratulations.
Thank you so
If we had a
much.
button for applause, I'd press it right now. But we're not that cool yet.
But it's been a real whirlwind as my first year with the movement going on and Red for Ed and just a first year teacher in general. It's a lot to take on. So, but Red for Ed in general is essentially a movement. It's a grassroots movement brought on by teachers and staff just being really upset about Arizona and what's happening in Arizona with education and a lack of funding.
There's a lot of things that we're spending money on, and a lot of things that we should be spending money on, and one of them is teachers. I think a lot of people agree with that because our kids need to be educated.
Yeah.
They need to know things for life.
Well, as she
And-
previously mentioned, though, it's not only about the teachers. It's
Right.
about the,
So, well, she didn't previously mention that because she hasn't talked about it yet because this is...
No worries.
So talk about that. So
Okay.
the Red for Ed was about teachers, but it was also about much more than that.
Yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions that teachers are greedy. What? Oh my gosh. Money. No. No teacher gets into it for the money.
I think a lot of people have that misconception because they didn't experience a good public education experience, I guess.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I in particular, I work in a Title I public school, which is a public school in a very high need, low income area. So it's the students in the area generally don't have a lot of money.
So that's already hard.
It's already
and then
pretty
on
difficult.
top of all the hardship, that's more harder.
When you
Right.
have social issues in your personal life, education does not come first. It's more of a second thing.
There are a lot of nurturing skills that you have to develop and compassion and counseling. And that's part of the reason why Red for Ed is so important is because the support staff needs aren't being met. We don't have enough counselors on our campuses. We don't have paraprofessionals to work in special education to help with teachers in special ed. We don't have the librarians. All those positions are being closed. We no longer have a band program at my school. I know. We don't have choir anymore at my school.
Oh no.
I teach at a K-8 public school.
Right.
So everything is being cut, everything. And it makes me want to cry because I see it kind of crashing down around me. And it's really sad. And even just the materials that were being provided are insufficient and out of date. And it comes out of our pockets most of the time.
Yeah, and that's hard because you're already not making all that much money
No.
in such a noble career path, and it's hard to teach kids. It is, and a lot of people want to do it, and they pursue it as a dream. You know, a lot of people grow up and I want to be a teacher. I want to teach kids, and then they're assholes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you want to, and you'll stick through it, and then they'll learn a lot from you. And it's a noble thing that's not being recognized enough, I think.
I appreciate that.
Of course, right. But also, battling opinions, I think that especially high school, no, just specifically high school, we should be teaching people how to live life. On top of knowledge, we should be teaching them how to do things like clean,
I entirely
or cook,
agree.
or do bills, or socialize better.
Communication
or not be an
needs to be
asshole.
more
Right.
stressed.
So these are things that we should also be touching on, but we're not, and there's no movement for that, and there's probably not going to be. But anyway.
Well, it's something that I teach in my classroum often. Actually,
Wow.
I teach empathy skills and mindfulness and communication, and just got done teaching an economics unit.
No way.
So really, really,
Very, very cool.
but that's kind of neither here nor there.
Right, of course.
But it's been a really difficult movement because we've had so many. I feel a lot of support from a lot of people for the movement, but I also see people very angry because it's directly affecting them.
Right.
When and I get it, when parents don't have anywhere to put their kids during the day because we're protesting, I totally understand what a difficult situation that puts them in. And I entirely feel for that.
I think something like this directly affects everybody in the sense that everybody's got a kid in a school,
Yeah.
right? And whether parents see it or not, they may go to school every day and they come home.
It's more than that because their tax dollars also go to something. So people who don't like the public educational system are like, why should I pay for this?
No, it makes sense, right?
It affects everybody regardless of whether you have a child in school.
But when you don't have the right resources, that goes with everything. Culinary, a cook, being in a graphic designer. If you don't have the right materials, you're not going to do the right job. And your job right now is to teach. And if you don't have the right materials to teach, you don't have the right, they're not learning as much as they possibly could be.
And that, as a teacher, it's consciously immoral for me, which is why I end up spending upwards of $3,000 on my class.
Ridiculous.
And for materials and resources. And even just during state standardized testing, we had AZ Merit state standardized testing for a whole week where the kids were shut in and couldn't go anywhere and couldn't do anything all day long. And but I wanted to make sure my kids had whatever they needed to thrive and to succeed. And so I bought snacks every day. I brought in treats.
Brain food.
I made little tiny cards that said how much I appreciate them and how they should be inspired and how they should believe in themselves with little candies and things like
That's
that.
so cute.
Just to make sure that they're not completely distraught during such a difficult
You're such
time.
a nice teacher. All my other teachers were just pricks. Yeah.
I'm really
well,
sorry to hear
I was a
that.
prick in school. I was the worst because I didn't care. And
Yeah, but-
I kind of wish that I had.
Consider how much your home life actually affected
Yes, it
that.
affected me a lot.
Yeah.
But also
These
I
kids
didn't.
may have similar home
I
lives.
could have. I could have. Taken it more seriously, but due to the conditions I just said, it's not going to matter anyway. But I wish I had more communication with teachers and more of like a personal relationship with them because that helps. It helps a lot.
It helps a
Even
lot.
if I dropped out, which I did, and I had communication with a teacher, they may have been able to help me with a lot of things that I had to do on my own. And so basically the point being here is don't fuck off in school and don't be pricks to your teacher. That's what I have to say. Especially you fourth graders because you have such a nice teacher here.
Oh, well, thank you.
Not that you know who we're talking about.
But it's just been a real whirlwind because we haven't, like I said, we don't have the funding that we need,
Yeah.
which ends up cutting a lot of support staff and a lot of hours. We don't have the assistance that we need. Everything is done on our own. Our buildings are crumbling. We've got leaks. We've got chairs that are broken. I've got outdated textbooks. I don't even have enough for all my students.
True.
It's one of those things where it's if you don't make something so important a priority, what do you think about in the future? How do you see the future being if you don't make the kids a priority? Because they are the
Swimming
future.
pools full of $100 bills, I think, is the idea there. It's just greed.
Yeah.
Just a lot of greed. I mean, there's a lot of people in this world that have enough money to be helping a cause like this and to be supporting, and they're not because lining your pockets with cash is a lot more important than teaching our kids to line their pockets with cash.
There's
So,
also a moral perspective of educating the society itself benefits everybody.
Yeah.
yeah. Like imagine, if you would, no kids this day and age were educated, and then our generation was the last cutoff for anybody who was taught anything that meant anything. And then what happens next? Like, there's people like
It almost feels like that is the progression.
Right,
That's
but that's
heading towards,
scary because-
I've watched my girlfriend's little brother. He's in special ed,
Yeah.
and he's had difficulty learning reading and math, and he's in special ed, and he doesn't have some of the opportunity to socialize with other kids. So the teachers don't understand that. The school doesn't really care.
It's sad, and there's a lot of things that people need to be educated on. Scientifically, we need to progress, and these scientists are going to die off eventually. The ones Stephen Hawking just died. That sucks. And there's a lot of people that need to be educated on these things deeply, and they need to have a full understanding of what's going on, and it's just not going to happen. It's kind of scary unless like trade. I did trade. I did culinary, but culinary is not going to help anything. Like me cooking is not going to help people eat. Right, but that's
eating is a fundamental.
It's a life skill.
Yeah.
It's not going to help us progress in the world, and so I think that's kind of where they want us, though. In all honesty, because as we progress, things get scary for people like politicians and big CEOs of companies. When we progress, we start overthrowing, and people don't like that. So we keep us dumb, and they'll be better off. And their kin will be better off, and then it kind of just sucks because it's greed.
Especially and most unfortunately, in my case, with being at a Title I school in such a low income area, I see that directly.
Right? It's scary.
It is very scary, and it's especially with the Red for Ed movement and Governor Ducey and the things that he's attempting to do. The bill itself was a really pretty bill. It had a lot of
aesthetically pleasing.
It was
it
was beautiful.
Just a gorgeous
it was
velvet paper.
Was it just
definitely
very language filled, but not really?
I mean, it was very pretty with the things he was saying that he would do, but unfortunately, there's no backing behind any of that with any revenue or where any of it's going to come from, and it's not.
Isn't that how it usually is, though? They promise these things.
It's
and
just
then
not
they
practical.
Pass a bill and then blah, blah, blah. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's just not practical. So unfortunately, us teachers are most afraid that even with the bill and with the protests, that the bill is going to collapse either way. I mean, Ducey has already been taken to court and lost twice.
Oh,
from
really?
stealing from education.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So,
I actually looked that up.
Go for it. But he's been taken, and that's where Prop 123 came from. Remember Prop 123
no.
a while ago? It was, I think it was up for a few years ago.
I will tell you that for face value, I don't know much about what you're talking about. That's why.
And that's okay. That's why we're here.
Exactly why I'm here, because
you're in good hands. I'm a teacher.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Before this, I was always interested in things like politics and these kinds of things, and I never really gave too much thought enough to actually do research on them.
Yeah.
That's where this guy comes in. He's very
Important
deep into political knowledge, and he teaches me a lot. We talk about it a lot. And I have my own opinions, but I'm not very educated. I have my opinions on how things should go and how they could run smoothly, but I couldn't back it up to save my life. So that's why I like doing this, is because the 123 prop or whatever you're talking
Prop
about.
123.
Prop 123. I have no idea about that, but you're about to tell me.
So
and I'm about to
what
be an
had
expert
happened
on it.
was that since 2008, there have been billions of dollars stolen from education.
So real quick, I found April
Stupid computer.
April 13th, 2018. Governor Doug Ducey's office paid nearly $700,000 to private law firms in a losing effort to defend an embattled ballot initiative that increased school funding disbursements from the state land trust.
I don't know what that means.
He took money that didn't belong to him.
Oh, for sure.
And then he got taken to court.
His
And
office paid legal fees of $700,000.
Ooh, that's so many. Also good though. Yeah.
so it's he had been mishandling funds, and
Right.
then in order to try to make up for it, they did Prop 123, which instilled a few percent back into what had initially already been taken.
Right.
But it was a very, very tiny percent in comparison to what was originally promised.
Yeah, of course.
$3.5 billion over the course of 10 years by allocating money from the general fund and increasing annual distributions of the state land trust permanent funds to education.
Jeez, it's so much.
But it's over 10 years.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still.
It's a very, very small amount. But he had stolen far, far more
Yeah.
than that. And that's and then he was taken to, actually, Prop 123 was found unlawful. which was
Oh,
the second
really?
time he was in court. Yep.
The plaintiff argument was Proposition 123 violated the federal law on the state's land trust fund because the proposition removed principle from the land.
This is why Tyler's here.
Defendant argument, Proposition 123 did not violate federal law because Congress no longer has oversight of the state's land trust fund. This is all on ballotpedia.com.
If you want to look it up
Or
for
.org.
yourself. We always suggest that people do their own research if they want to know about it. Don't just take everything with a grain of salt, you know?
Most
Make up your own
definitely.
decision. Quit being stupid.
I appreciate the fact checking. I've only got so much of a
Right,
memory that I can.
exactly. People get all
have.
butthurt. I mean, it's just like, well, they haven't, but I'm sure it's going to happen eventually. But we just want to know.
Yeah, we
You know?
we have from the point of the beginning of the podcast, our understanding was this is a teacher strike.
Right, but you've
That's
educated us so much more.
Yeah.
That it's more than teachers, and it's a lot
more
of
We're
than
money.
very
teachers.
grateful
Right,
for that.
right. You're doing it right. This is how this podcast should go down.
Good. I'm glad that
We
I
don't
can
always talk
be here.
things like this, like political and stuff. Sometimes we just talk about whatever, you
Yeah.
know, just simple chats.
I think the last podcast, one of the highlights was
Oh my god.
you're gay if
Yeah,
even
all
if-
butt sex is gay butt sex. That was the last one. If you listen
So-
to our last podcast, it kind of
This
touches
is a
on
very
that.
different topic.
Right. And sorry, we are inappropriate.
I mean,
You're
I'm
a
not
teacher, I
opposed
understand.
to-
Oh, right? Exactly. It's awesome. Me neither. I love.
Since I'm remaining anonymous, like
yes,
I mean,
you may. Like, nobody knows who you are. I don't even know who you are.
perfect.
That's fun. So thank you for educating, but I want to switch topic just a tad.
Go ahead.
What do you do when you're not a teacher?
What do I do when I'm not a teacher?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I mean, just average people things.
No.
I mean,
Ooh.
We don't have to get too into this as far as your personal life goes because you're remaining anonymous. So I don't want to.
Yeah, it's entirely up to you.
Out
Just
you
say,
at all.
hey, Jesse, I don't want to fucking talk about that. You gotta say.
I mean, I just like everyone else, I go out and hang out with people, and I mean, I'm only 23, so I still have a
lot of life.
lot of life.
Maybe.
I still try
always
to
maybe.
still try to live my life to the best that I can. I try to be social.
Oh, of course.
It's hard though being a teacher because I put in so many hours.
Yeah.
So
It's
many hours.
Monday
This
through
last
Friday, right?
Yeah, well I
How school works.
I work 30 miles from where I live.
Oh my god.
So it's quite
Why
the commute.
do you do that?
Why?
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
I like a buffer zone between my school
I get that.
and between me.
That's understandable.
I like to be able to still go out in like a crop top.
You gotta be careful.
Not
right, if you're
see
too
kids or
close.
parents.
Yeah.
It's actually a huge thing for teachers. I can't post pictures of myself with alcoholic beverages online.
Aw.
I can't talk
You have to
about
lie. That's such as the teachers that you have to lie. They're not allowed to
it's
see you as
which is why I have to
as
remain
a role.
anonymous.
You become
Right,
a
of
person
course.
of influence to
Exactly.
these students.
yeah.
So
Whether or not she's a person of influence, they're
You
gonna
have to be
do
mindful
it, you
of
know?
how your persona is being represented.
Yeah. Well, she's got the knowledge, and she's very sweet and nice. I think she's allowed a beverage every now and again.
Sure, just don't take pictures like a child.
Yeah.
I guess
it's,
that makes a lot of sense.
it's an image
Yes.
I get
that
it.
I have to uphold for the
I
public.
get it. I just don't agree with it. That's all.
I understand. It's a personal autonomy thing.
is,
That
yeah.
is. It's a difficult situation to maneuver
Because of the
around.
people that we are, we can get away with that stuff. But people like politicians or people like teachers or people who have this status that they need to maintain for the sake of the people that they represent cannot
Right,
do that.
I get it. I get it. But also, like, we know they do it.
Yeah.
We know it. But we're ugh, he's doing it. I'm seeing it happen. Like, it's
Well, I mean, and props to my district actually, because I know I'm saying something good. Props to my district actually, because they all knew that I wasn't straight.
Sure.
They all knew that, and I told them, I was like, hey, you know, if it comes up in conversation in my class, I'm not gonna
Super gay.
say other way. Like I'm not gonna pretend that I'm something I'm not
Right.
in front of my students, because it's something that needs to be normalized anyways.
Of course. Yeah. We're getting
So-
to that time of life where these things just need to be,
They just
what it is.
need to be what
Yep.
it is.
Mhm.
And they knew that going into the situation of hiring me. I made it very clear beforehand, and I'm very lucky to work in a district that I'm not getting fired for being
Yay,
gay.
Isn't that cool? The world works in just wonderful ways. these
Because
days.
there are many districts in Arizona, unfortunately, that if I were to be openly gay, I would be immediately terminated in this right to work state.
Ridiculous.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. I'm gay on my free time. I'm straight at home, but out and about. And my wife knows about it. She knows that I'm gay on my free time.
I'm sure she appreciates the honesty.
Oh, she loves it. Yeah, exactly. She actually likes it. She's like, go be gay. I'll take my time to myself. And, you know.
She actually said she prefers not to know, and she's glad she doesn't. She
you
told
don't-
that to
she
me
didn't
though,
Say that. She likes
but
that
it's
I'm gay.
us together.
It's me and Tyler. We're gay.
Yeah.
I'm not making fun of
No,
gay people.
it's
I wear my thoughts on my sleeves, and I'm sorry if I offend. But all butt sex is gay butt sex. That's what and I like it that way. I'm having a kid, and I'm gonna raise him gay, and it's a joke that I tell everybody because it's just the norm now. It's just to be gay, so I want him to be that way. You know, everybody raises their kids straight. I'm gonna raise mine gay. It's just my choice.
Okay, go for it. But I mean, there were actually a lot of this being my first year teaching, there were actually a lot of really huge positives and wins. One of them being one of my students. I had come out to my students because they had asked me about it. And I, at the time, was engaged to a woman. And unfortunately, I'm not anymore. But I know it's a little sad, but it's okay. It happens. But I know when
I actually have a question.
Go ahead.
Were you previously married?
I was not.
No.
What kind of fucking question is that?
My brother asked me something like that.
Kyle?
Yeah.
Piece of shit. Hope he listens to this.
Fuck Kyle.
Yeah, go back to Florida.
No, I've never
Virginia.
never been married.
Go to Florida.
But really awesome positive win. Like I said, I don't know if I said it in this one or the first take, but I teach compassion and empathy and communication to my
What
students.
first take? This is the
And,
first take.
and I teach compassion and empathy and understanding and tolerance and just really in mindfulness and just important things to my students to develop compassionate kids.
I have a brother and a sister. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and the 2
Wow.
youngest, yes, I'm the oldest. The 2 youngest, I have a friend named Frank who is transgender, and she identifies as he, and it's just he. It's just Frank. Frank is a boy, and they met Frank for the first time, and they were like, "Oh, it's she," you know, and we're like, "No, this is a boy. This is Frank." They did not understand at all how that worked. So they were asking me like, "Does Frank have a penis or a vagina?" And I said, "Frank's got a penis, but Frank is a boy, or Frank's got a vagina and Frank is a boy." And they were like, "That's not how that works." I'm like, "It kind of is though. Like,
It is.
It's just however you want. Just say boy. That's
Yeah.
all he wants. It's not a big deal. Just do it, whether you agree with it or not."
Yeah.
I think
And-
where it gets complicated though is when doctors need to know the personal information
Right.
of transgender
If
people.
if you're going to a doctor and you're transgender, just call yourself a boy, but understand that you have female genitals. and you
Psychologically
need to do
male,
that.
biologically female.
Please, that it's just better for everybody. You know.
Yeah. It's better for you.
But yeah, they were very confused. It's better for me.
Oh, it's better for the person going to the doctor.
What? But they were confused, and it took a really long time to explain to them that it's just let it be. And they're not old
Yeah.
enough to actually explain it in depth. You know. Sometimes I don't even think I understand it in depth.
I think
but-
it'd be really hard to grasp as a young child as
Right.
well.
because my parents are bigot assholes. So my little brother called a little black girl the N-word the other day at school, and she punched him in the face. Good for her. And so and I'm so upset with him, and he will be dealt with by my hand. But it's this kind of ignorance, so that when we were talking about something so profound as transgender, he was almost disgusted by it. He's like, "I don't understand it, and I don't like it." And I'm like, "You gotta just deal with it. You gotta.
Yeah.
This is how when you grow up. I didn't grow up this way. This is new to me, just like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But you're gonna grow up in this life.
Yeah.
Your entire generation is gonna have a ton of gays, a ton of transgender. And
It's been
you just
happening
gotta-
for over 40 years. It's just in the public light now.
right, and he's got to
Yeah.
deal with it, or else he's gonna have a bad time in life.
Yeah.
That's
Throughout
what it is.
history, it's been pretty common for men to dress as women.
Many,
women to dress as
many,
men.
many years of history, like a couple thousand years back, is what I'm understanding.
There were women who fought in, I think, World War II who pretended to be men.
That
And
might just be an honor thing, though. You know.
well,
Move on it.
There were women who also were allowed to,
Yeah.
but it wasn't as common for them to be allowed to.
Right.
As I was saying, though, I had a huge win because like I said, I came out to my students and they were all very supportive and very sweet. And, which by the way was very hard. I cried.
Oh no.
It was very hard to do
That's good.
because it's just so scary.
Were any of them like?
No.
No, really, all of them.
None of them.
That's amazing. That's really.
It was
good.
great. Yeah. But later on, one of my students actually came out as who's a girl liking other girls in my class. And it made my heart so happy.
Now, did you talk to her parents about that? Is that something that you kind of have to do?
No, it's,
I think that would be crossing a line to the kid.
I think so too.
yeah.
But
No,
from
it's
their
not, it's not
perspective.
something that, unless it affects the safety of a child,
Sure.
things like that,
Mhm.
you know, then it needs to be crossed over
Right.
into that realm.
But it didn't need to in this particular
No,
case. That's good.
but it was just it was a really heartwarming moment because this student in particular had started the year very closed, very kind of withdrawn.
Sure.
And by the end of the year, she was just unapologetically herself.
That's amazing.
And it just makes me really happy to know that, you know, hopefully I helped her be okay with that and
Oh, I
seeing
bet,
it in
yeah.
her life. You know,
you're teaching fourth grade. What's the usual age for fourth grade? It's
9 to
like
10.
9 to 10.
Mhm.
So I'm sure at such a young age, when you're feeling these things, not a lot of people talk about it.
No.
You know, and a lot of parents still these days are kind of like, put that away until you're older.
Mhm.
You know, like we'll talk about that later. And
Well,
so,
that would also be around the age that you start to notice.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I lost my train of thought. I will do this once an episode. I know.
Just lose your train of thought?
Yeah, because one track mind, somebody talks, and then I'm fucking gone. But yeah, it must be hard to talk about that at their age, and they probably don't often. They probably don't know anybody like that. You know,
it was
and
really
then-
difficult for
and then-
sure.
Yeah, and then you come along and you're like, "Hey, super gay over here." And then, is that what it is? Awesome. That's what-
It's been a really great year though, as a first year teaching.
Mhm.
It's been amazing. I've had a lot of really positive stories. One of my students actually is an orphan
Ooh.
and lives in a home. And it was just really, really sad. This student in particular had tons of outbursts,
Orphans will do that.
PTSD,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
things like that. And every other teacher couldn't handle him. And came into my class, and the whole entire first quarter he was in my class, he didn't have a single outburst.
That's good.
There wasn't any throwing of things. There wasn't any yelling. It was amazing. And, you know, over time here and there, he went through a lot of other trauma with potential adopters and things like that. And it was hard, but we had a really amazing year. And
Would that have to do with the expectations from the child? Like they expect him to be an adult, kind of?
what do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Like from the teacher's perspective,
Not okay.
looking at the child, thinking you need to act this specific way, and the child not understanding that, or
No, it's always a very difficult situation when you've got someone with such deep emotional need and you don't always have the capacity to meet that.
You also don't know which emotions are needed.
Exactly.
You know? Like,
And with the Red for Ed movement, bringing it back there, home run, full circle,
there it is.
we also don't have the resources for counselors.
Oh, that
and
sucks.
We have a counselor on campus, but hours are very limited. The ratio for counselor to student should be far lower than it is.
Sure.
Far, far lower.
Who is to counsel all these kids? They need counseling.
Especially in high need Title I schools where they've
course.
got so many emotional needs and trauma in their life. So it's
Does that thing just spew out every now and again? Do you just,
It does,
Since you've been
yes.
here, have you just smelt wafts of like delicious?
I've also listened and
Have you
heard it
heard? I
and
can't. I got these on.
seen
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
I
it's
was just
an air
curious.
freshener
That's
over
Yes.
awesome. Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's totally okay.
Very cool. Yeah. Or not even just orphans. People. I grew up in a really shitty environment, like really bad. I didn't have a lot of lash outs as a kid though. But growing up that way, I can understand the kids who do, because when you're growing up, your mind is kind of like a sponge. Not even kind of. It almost is. It absorbs literally everything that comes in it. So when you're in an environment like that and then switch it off and nobody's fighting, nobody's arguing, nobody's doing drugs, your world that you knew growing up is not that world anymore. And as a kid who already doesn't know how to handle the emotions that he's feeling, are now feeling the most craziest emotions that you can possibly feel, and you don't know.
As a child, kids are incredibly flexible and adaptive, and they will always adapt to their environment, whichever way necessary.
Well, it often takes a lot of time. Like you were talking about the kid with the lash outs. He doesn't know how to act. He doesn't know how to handle it, because when you see something like that, you expect it to happen around the corner at any time. His guard was up. That's all it is. He's just making sure that he's okay, looking out for number one, because it's all he's ever had to look. Even at 10 years old, it's all he's ever had to look out for is himself.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yes. So, but unfortunately, that child, it's been a really rough road for him. But being in my class, I've hopefully
I would say
tried helping and done everything I could as a teacher. But unfortunately, there's only so much you can do when you've got 30 kids and all of them have different needs, and you've only got so many hours in the day. But oftentimes we spend more time with kids than their parents do most of the time.
right.
We have them 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You know, I get to work at 6:30 in the morning, and my kids start coming in the door at 7:15.
Wow, that's early.
So,
Oh, was that attractive? Did anybody like that?
it was great.
Was that? Thank you so much. Oh my goodness.
Honestly, though, it was a little weak.
My wife.
Could have had a little more oomph.
My wife can burp and fart like the best of them. I think that
Real
has to do
champ.
with being pregnant.
Real champ.
Because a lot of the gas or whatever. You don't have any kids yourself, right?
No.
Have you been gay your whole life? I think that's how it works, right?
I mean, generally.
'Cause, being gay is obviously a choice and not the way you're born.
It's all good.
As I said before,
You might get jumped
I
for
speak my
saying
mind.
that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I am not afraid to speak my mind. And please understand that I am joking.
Of course.
I am very accepting of the gay popularity and the trans popularity. To each their own. I think a lot of people need that mindset, is because I'm personally not gay.
Just on the weekends,
Yeah,
right?
on the weekends, right. Personally not gay at the moment. But that doesn't affect my life at all. It doesn't. And it doesn't affect anybody else's life. And even if you have to see like 2 dudes or 2 chicks making out in the public, it's not really a big fucking deal. Like, chill. Relax. Right,
Like
Tyler?
anybody wants to see anybody making out in public.
I love it. I look for it.
I mean, exhibitionism.
Right
That's
when I'm
fair.
done here, I'm going out into town and I'm looking for people making out.
Just to watch.
Just I will sit there and be like, do you mind if I just watch this happen?
Just people watch.
Not once has anybody been okay with it, but
Well, they
there's no
shouldn't
point.
mind. They're doing it in public.
That's right. That's the thing. What's your thoughts on PDA?
PD.
'Cause
I don't know
mine
how
now.
deep we want this podcast to get into my sex life.
It's anonymous.
I know, right? Teacher by day, BDSM by night. Like,
I wear nothing but leather outside of work. That's good. Yeah. So it's a fun podcast. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And this is what it's all about. I recently, somebody commented on our Facebook post about this that was interested in doing it, and he was talking what it was about. And I think one of the coolest parts about having a podcast where there's not a lot of subject topic beforehand, it's interesting to see the thought process on the spot. It's really cool.
you see a lot
'cause-
of personalities
right,
come out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you. It's who you are.
Yeah.
And
Right.
this particular one, she did tell us what she wanted to talk about beforehand because of the anonymous part. Or he, you don't know.
I mean,
But it's really, really interesting to see, because that's what this podcast is all about, is people talking about what they want to talk about in a setting that they're comfortable with. And that's really cool. I love Tyler.
I love you.
It's so nice to hear.
So you did mention pros and cons of the specific school district.
yes.
Let's talk about
So, well, education in general, I can talk for hours
that.
about
Please
this.
do.
But,
we only have a half hour, but
well.
that's okay.
So, one of the biggest things with the Red for Ed movement, and one of the things that Governor Ducey is,
Douchey.
teachers don't really trust him
Is that not
because
PC?
teachers don't really trust him because, like I said, and which was fact checked, he's been taken to court a few times for mishandling funds from education.
And lost.
Yes, and it's it's been something that we don't really trust him. And unfortunately, in the public sector, with Betsy DuBois and her push toward charter and private education, it makes education very difficult. And a lot of people have misconceptions as to the differences between public, charter, and private education. And they actually are massive, massive differences. With public education, there are a lot of stringent rules that need to be followed. Tyler, you had mentioned that your, would you say brother was in special ed?
He would say brother, yes. We have
Yes.
confirmed that this is brother.
Sibling
My
is in...
girlfriend's brother.
Okay, sibling's brother. Okay, sorry. I just remembered like some relation of a child with special
It
needs.
was a good knock on my brother, though.
Yeah. His brother's a douche, and I don't care if he knows it. You know what he did yesterday? Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
We have band practice every Saturday, and his brother's in town from the Navy, and he wanted to tase me with a taser. And
Doesn't sound like a very good plan.
he didn't he has no I thought that when he went in he would have some sort of like hand-to-hand combat
Discipline.
training or discipline, right? And he had none of that, which means that even though he's in form of the military, I could still kick his fucking ass. So if he ever came at me with a taser,
I'm proud of you.
I would rip his nipples off of his body. Continue, please.
With special education in particular, because I do have a pretty good background in special ed, having a degree in it and working in it and things like that. In charter and private education, they are not required at all to provide special education services. Boo. Whereas in public education with the IDEA Act, it ensures that students get what they need with special education and it be completely provided in full by the government.
So how do we get behind that?
With public education, it's already a law.
Oh.
Yes.
Is special education individualized?
Yes. So we
What is
create
the
things called an
educational-
IEP, an individualized education plan.
Oh,
Cool.
right.
And so that's
My
something
brother
that
actually did do that.
You've heard of IEP?
Yeah, he did an IEP.
the teachers made him an IEP, but yes.
Yeah.
It's essentially a plan built around the student to create goals and understanding of where the child's needs are and how the teachers can better fit those needs with accommodations and supports. But off with the legal jargon of the
You're
situation.
very educated on this.
Thank you.
Not many teachers are this educated about it. They just go in, they teach, they get out, and then, boo, I don't get paid enough. But you're educated.
It's part of the reason why
Yeah.
I got a degree in special education as
Right.
well, because I wanted to make sure that in a fully inclusive classroom, using something called universal design of learning, I can make sure that all of my students have their needs met regardless of their diversity or background.
You're a goddamn one-man army. Fantastic. I wish everybody thought like you.
Thank you. But it's in charter and private schools, they don't have rules on things like special education. They don't have their needs always being met. Charters have very, very vague rules, but I've seen tons of IEPs come from charter schools and their needs weren't being met for many, many years. And private schools don't have any regulations on it. In fact, one of my friends who went to private school, she is blind. And she went to private school and her parents had to pay for all of the accommodations that she needed in the classroom. They had to pay for all of her enlarged print. When she was younger, she could see very minimally.
Legally blind.
Well, she is albinism and she's blind. And so it affected her eyes in a way that with light and things like that. But anyways, her parents had to provide all the accommodations and she wasn't given any specific needs from the teachers, things like that in the private education sector, which is one of the reasons why public education is so important. It's a vital part because we have rules saying we will take anyone and everyone and we will give them what they need, which is why funding toward it is vital.
It is.
Isn't that against the law?
Which law?
It says here, all public schools under the Individuals with Disability Education Act, IDEA.
Public schools.
IDEA.
Public schools.
Charter schools are public schools, therefore they bear the same responsibility. This is parentcenterhub.org.
Parentcenterhub.org. He's not talking to the mic.
Charter, they fall under IDEA, but they don't follow the same strict, stringent guidelines and rules that we do. So they don't get audited or evaluated the same ways that public schools do.
Bunch of turds.
And they also don't receive the same types of funding that public schools do.
So it's less government involvement, so they get away with it.
Exactly.
So
So they still have IEPs. They still have those plans, but they're often years and years and years out of date. It's very much swept under the rug, unfortunately. So they say they have the services, but they're not meeting the same par that you would in a public school sector. In private schools, they are entirely negated from the situation. They don't have the same at all types of requirements. Well, and in private schools in general, they can pick and choose who they want to include. So oftentimes, unless it's a private school specializing in a specific type of disability, the students will be left out of the conversation entirely with disabilities, which makes me very upset.
I think it kind of should make everybody kind of upset,
That seems weird because the parents are paying for the student to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But ultimately, in private schools, the schools pick the students. They can decide to kick out whoever they want.
Bunch of turds.
But that's bringing it full circle with Red for Ed. Governor Ducey is fully in line with the Koch brothers, Koch, I believe, Koch brothers, who
Coach?
I don't.
I'm not sure. I've heard it
I know the
pronounced multiple
spelling.
ways.
The brothers.
The brothers.
Just two brothers.
Who are extremely for privatized and charter education. And they've already kind of got their hands in Ducey's pockets, if you will. And
political contributions.
Unfortunately, which actually part of the Red for Ed, part of his proposal and bill and everything that was kind of being pushed through, part of that was that some money was going to go toward charter schools that was going to be entirely hands-off money. They wouldn't need any receipts or any understanding as to where that money was going.
That's not okay.
Which means it can go toward literally anything and anyone in the charters. But that's the Koch brothers? The Koch brothers.
The Koch brothers. Brothers
Yeah,
with cocks.
I think
I'd
it's
like to get
pronounced
to know
Coke,
these brothers.
Koch, well, okay.
Coach.
Let's go
Co-
take a visit
co-
to the
it's
Koch
Coach.
brothers.
Koch.
It is, yes.
That's Coach. Koch?
Koch?
I've
The
heard
Coach?
it pronounced a few ways.
Phonetically, it's Koch.
Stupid idiot brothers. Can we just call SOCH stupid idiot brothers?
But they're right along with the movement with Betsy and their push toward privatized education. And with going along with that, privatized education is where they're pushing toward because you can educate the masses in whichever way you prefer.
So you disagree with private education? Is that
Not necessarily. I think all forms of education have their place. But unfortunately,
it could just be handled a little differently and ran a little.
it's the issue that I have with many privatized educations is that you can teach the kids whatever you want. I have strict, standardized set of criteria of things that I have to teach. I have
Right.
standards that I have to teach
Of course.
from the government saying that I need to teach these things.
Right.
Private schools don't.
Do you have
They can teach whatever
do
they
you ever
want.
have an issue with the things that the government wants you to teach?
No.
Really?
No. It's we don't get into a lot of the more politically controversial things in fourth grade.
Well, of course. But like,
But I will say though that I don't sugarcoat shit in my classroom.
you say shit and everything.
I mean,
I don't think
these
you're allowed
fucking Indians over here.
no, but really, when I taught about Native Americans, I told them a lot more than what was in the textbook.
Sure.
I recently heard that they were taking the Trail of Tears part of history out of a specific high school's textbooks. I think it was in Texas.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
People
that's
will
really
pick and choose, unfortunately.
Well, we're not getting all of the information on our history.
No.
that's important to
It
know.
is, yeah,
It's incredibly important.
Extremely. Like we're assholes in the beginning. We're assholes now, but we killed for this land.
Yes.
I mean, like
innocent
saying we.
lives.
I don't want to associate
Not
with those
we.
people.
We don't. But as
Colonizers.
colonizers, right? We killed a lot of people. For this
Colonizers
land.
killed a lot of people.
I said we again. Colonizers killed too many people for us to live where we live right now.
But when I was teaching about colonization, we did not celebrate Columbus Day in my classroom.
For the best.
When I was teaching colonization, and I was teaching colonization not only from the U.S. perspective, but also the Spanish perspective, and understanding that in both means. I only teach fourth graders, so I didn't get into it in a huge depth, but I didn't sugarcoat any of it either. I didn't tell them lies. It's not who I am as a teacher.
I like it. Kind of get in your way, like a loophole. The criteria is there, it's met, but you're teaching it in your own way, and you're not a liar.
Exactly.
I like it. There's spunk and ambition in it.
If you were being observed, how would that go down, I guess?
Well, I don't say anything that's not true. I can provide everything with articles and support.
So as long as it's backed up, you are allowed to talk about it under the criteria as long as it's being met.
Yes.
Like it's within the specific subject, and there's actual information that proves that that actually did happen. So
we also actually have standards that are for critical thinking and that are for researching.
Critical thinking being thinking critically, I assume.
Higher level thinking, yes.
Right? That's crazy.
Wow.
But understanding and teaching higher level thinking is actually a standard, and being able to have students recognize false, information and being able to have them research things on their own is something that I teach in my classroom.
Is that a nationwide standard, or is that exclusive to Arizona?
I'm not entirely sure. I do know that we follow the Arizona AZCCRS, the Arizona State and College and Career Readiness Standards, which are very similarly aligned to the Common Core standards, which are federal standards.
Okay.
So, but it's just one of those things that it is a difficult situation when you're in the classroom and when you're teaching, but I will, like I was saying before with me coming out as being gay, like I'm not going to lie to my kids,
Right.
I'm not going to. I don't care what they say.
Did you talk to anybody before you came out? Were you like, is that cool? Can I do that?
Mm-hmm.
You did.
Yeah, I spoke with my district before I got hired, and I made it very clear who I was and what, at the time I was engaged. And so it would be just like if you were meeting a teacher and they were introducing their husband on a beginning of the year slideshow, telling them about their family.
It just so happened to be your wife.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Well, fiance at the time. But it's the same idea, though. It's the same idea of introducing yourself. And that's one of the cornerstones of building a relationship with your students is they want to know about you.
Yeah. Just like we want to know about you.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's just to keep conversation going. What are you fact checking over there, Stumpers?
I was going to look into nationwide critical thinking, but
for sure.
I didn't find anything.
Yeah.
It was just a quick search.
The internet tends to not critically think often. Okay, so that's fun. Lot of neat stuff about being a teacher. And I think you actually, I doubt we'll have a lot of other teachers on our show. I appreciate you caring so much to come and talk about this.
Of course.
It's kind of cool. I didn't know a lot about being a teacher. I don't have any teachers in my family. I actually do, but I don't talk to her. But I don't care either.
Can you actually explain the Purple for Students movement? What is that?
Purple for Parents. Purple for
is it
Parents. Yes. I believe so. I could be wrong. Check
It
that.
has to rhyme.
But Purple for Parents.
The first rule of a movement it has to sound good.
It is
It's
Purple
true.
for Parents.
Oh, good. I was right. But Purple for Parents was essentially a movement counteracting the Red for Ed movement. First of all, I want to say not a single teacher wanted to walk out of their fucking classrooms.
Duh.
Not a single teacher wanted to
No.
be there.
My brother
Not a
and
single
sister-
teacher.
My brother and sister were out of school for a week because of the Red for Ed thing, and I thought, that's cool, but also, no, it's a week of not being in school, and now they're behind.
No one
and-
wanted to do that.
Right, and
No one.
Obviously. Like, yeah, you get the break or whatever, but you're
It wasn't, though. I was at the Capitol every day.
Right, you were. I'm talking about the kids
Oh, yeah.
particularly. Like, of course they were stoked. They're kids. They don't want to be in school, especially my brother and sister. But
Sorry to hear that.
they're not. I need to do something. They were stoked, but I was like, that's a whole week of you being behind, and that really sucks.
At the very end of the year, which is such a critical time.
And so now they lost that whole week of education, and they had to catch up, which made it harder for them. And so, unfortunately, and I applaud the Red for Ed movement. I think you guys did awesome because we're not doing enough movements to get what we need as American citizens, as individual citizens. And so I applaud it, but also it kind of sucked that it had to go that way. You know?
Well, we had been doing like walk-in protests for quite a while before we actually had to do the walkout.
Right.
I don't know how long it was, but I think it was for at least a couple months that we had been wearing our Red for Ed shirts. And
Thank you for wearing it. By the way.
yeah, well, this one's really cool. It's like
Yeah.
themed.
The educators strike back.
Yeah.
That's not going to give you away, is it?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, they're everywhere. But it's just so hard to put into words how much teachers didn't want to walk out. We had been doing strikes and protests on corners.
Right.
We'd been doing walk-ins where we would walk into the school with our students wearing our Red for Ed.
Sure.
We would wear red every Wednesdays. You know,
Doing everything you
doing
could.
everything we possibly could without leaving the school.
Of course.
We would go after school. That one, there was a Saturday march we did where it was out of school hours, marching, explaining what was happening. And then there was the one march that started it all. There was like, I think 75,000 people at the Capitol.
Woo! That's a lot.
It was a lot,
Yeah.
but it's necessary. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
no one wanted to do it, but no one was listening.
Right. And that's what you do when no one's listening. You fucking do something. And
Yeah.
It's always doing that is always risky because oftentimes it works when doing something so drastic as to take.
People need to realize that everyone needs teachers.
Right.
If you can read, you need to thank a teacher.
Right. Because, I mean, even if that teacher is your parents and you were homeschooled, thank you. You know, 'cause you don't
Exactly.
just pick up a book and go, oh, I'll figure it out. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
No. But it's good, and we need more movements for the things that we need because you know the world right now.
Yes.
Everyone sees it, and we're all on one side or the other, but nobody's really doing anything about it except for ranting on social media, which does not work.
Does not.
And so we need to be doing something physical, something that you can see, something that makes
Gotta
a
be
difference.
vigilant.
Vigilant. You got to be a vigilante. Spray paint some stuff. Make a riot.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Teacher says don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. But we definitely need to be doing something because there's a lot of bullshit going on and nothing's being done, and people are just getting away with the things that they're doing right now.
So the Purple for Parents movement, the founder, there's this quote, "I started this group to give a voice to parents who felt that the Red for Ed movement was not really aligned with their own personal beliefs." The founder is Forrest Moriarty.
Oh, a Moriarty.
There was no place to talk about it. If you disagree with them, you would be shouted out. There were also kids, support staff, and teachers who didn't agree with the walkout. The Red for Ed people have made their coworkers, parents, and kids uncomfortable about by doing this. And then there's quotes from other people. A lot of the quotes talk about what seems like, as you mentioned, a misconception about just the teachers getting a raise.
Yes.
And there's not much mention about like infrastructure or
Support staff,
about
peer people spending.
other staff
Yeah.
that help the building run, that help the teachers. It's like they're misinterpreting it.
Most people do when they're against it.
That's true.
Unfortunately.
No, yeah,
It seems like more like people just see one side and think, I don't agree with that, so I'm going to find a different side.
Well, at the start of this Red for Ed
Hilarious.
movement, before we did the walkout, there were so many. Every single person that I had talked to about it, everyone in the district, everyone parent-wise, they were all for it. Everyone was for it.
Yeah.
But then as soon as it starts affecting them
Oh, yeah.
with
they're out.
in a negative sense in some
Right.
way, then people start getting upset.
Yeah, there was a lot of blame being on the teachers for walking out, and the painting of the picture was they're leaving our students and not caring about them because they
Yes.
want money.
Which is entirely
Well,
untrue.
It's ignorance. I've always seen and
It doesn't have any consideration for the fact that Doug Ducey took dark money, and the educational system has not had the funding that it's needed for a long time.
10 years
10 years.
since 2008.
you guys did something and it affected parents negatively for a week. And they
Yes.
got scared. Parents these days don't want to do anything at all, ever. And that it sucks. So when I see stuff like Purple for Parents or whatever, it was a good cause, and then it affected them, and they were like, nope, I don't want to do it because it affects me directly, even though it would be really good in the long run.
Yeah.
People are thinking too much of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
when really they should be thinking about the consequence and effect of what could be happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's where doing your own research comes in handy, because if you just took the time to realize what Red for Ed was actually about and could get behind it, everything would be fine. But this stupid shit, it's just dumb.
I mean, everyone has the right to their own opinions, and I understand that it is a terrible inconvenience, but many schools were also trying to provide something to help these parents.
Yeah.
I know our school in the district that I work at, we still provided breakfast and lunch every day.
Yeah.
Every
that's
day.
neat. That's very good.
The kids could come, and because we were a Title I school, many of those kids rely on those meals as being their meal, unfortunately.
Of course.
So we still had breakfast and lunch every day. They could come and get their breakfast and lunch if they wanted to, you know. And there were also other places in the public and the community that were trying to do their best to provide services. And one thing, though, that really makes it burns my britches, rubs me the wrong way, is that I saw a lot of, if you add up the math, because they were talking about having to pay people, you know, a little bit each day to watch their kids, similar to like a babysitter's wage.
Sure.
If we had been paid what babysitters make, I'd be in the six figures.
There's a weak ass whistle, but you get the idea. That's.
But do you
pretty
understand? Like, people see us as glorified babysitters,
Right.
and
I've heard that
yet
argument.
we're making so much less. I will give you specific figures. I make $37,000 a year, but that's before taxes. That's gross.
Sure.
I mean, that's gross. So
Can you give us your
It's gross
perspective
and
on
it's
an
gross.
hourly?
I can. Well, I don't know about hourly, but I can tell you how much I make every 2 weeks.
Okay.
After taxes, I make about $1,000 every 2 weeks.
So it's about $13 an hour.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
roughly what we make too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's after taxes. I make about $1,000
But
every
we're
2
working
weeks.
basic service jobs.
Right.
I have
We're
an
not
associate's
teaching
degree. You
anyone.
don't have a degree.
We're
You have
not
a bachelor's
taking
degree.
care
I have a
of
bachelor's.
children.
I have 2 degrees. That's after getting paid for my 15 plus extra hours in college.
Ridiculous.
But I make $1,000 every 2 weeks. And so roughly $26,000 a year net as a teacher, as someone that spent 4 years of their life trying to make sure that I knew what I needed to know to educate students. So it's sad. It's super sad. Especially when you have 30 kids that you're trying to care for. They're nurturing their needs, being as compassionate as you can while still making sure you're covering all of the standards they need to learn. So it's certainly a juggling act.
Well, thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you for caring so much. As somebody who's about to have a kid myself, it'll be a while before he goes to school. But I obviously want my child to have the best education that he possibly can. I want him to be a lot of things. I want him to be educated. I want him to never, like his father, talk about things that he doesn't know about.
Never like his father.
I want him to not like
He's
me
gonna
at
hate
all.
you. I'm
and-
just kidding.
and realize that it's not okay to be straight. I want him to know, I want him to be educated on basic knowledge, but also I want him to be educated on how life works,
Yeah.
because we didn't know coming into this is how it was going to be. I was left in the dark with my parents on everything. So I thought life was going to work, coming home, being angry and upset, and then not having an opinion on anything and going to sleep. And that's what for a really long time I thought life was. But then there's so much more. Some of it's amazing, you know, and then some of it sucks.
Yes.
And and I think everybody should want their kids to know a certain amount coming up so that they're ready for it. And that's what I want to know. So there's a lot of things that I can teach him that you wouldn't be able to, because there's just some things that parents and kids should be talking about on their own and teaching on their own. And we rely on you for a certain criteria, for them to be educated.
But
about
some students
things.
don't have the parents there.
Right.
Which is where
why
we
the
step
school
in.
needs to be able to help. Which is why sexual education is really important.
Very important.
It should be taught.
Yes.
Which is why, parent planning should be a thing. Why, taxes, that should be taught. That's
Most
definitely
definitely.
not something I learned.
Okay, so that's going to probably just about wrap it up for this episode.
Thank you guys so much for
yeah,
having me.
absolutely, Miss Anonymous or Mr. Anonymous. Don't know.
Yeah, you don't know if we edited this.
Yeah. 6 foot tall, huge ripped guy over here. It just edited to sound like a woman. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you did, if not, tune in. It's a cool show. If you would like to be a part of it, we're going to get an email going pretty soon that you guys can send us all of your information. Let us know if and when you'd like to do it. And
you can find us on iTunes and Google Play.
Yep. Find us
We
on
have a
those
couple
things.
episodes up already, and this one will be up soon.
All right. That wraps it up.
That concludes, I think, episode 4
or 5.
or 5. I don't remember
Yeah,
at this
who knows
point.
anymore. Thanks, guys, for
Of
tuning
your
in.
thoughts.
You guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever we decide to post this. Have a good one.